We recently spent some time in Southern California, and while we were there, we checked out one of the flagship Guitar Center stores, the Hollywood Guitar Center, which features their Rockwalk used and vintage section. Let's check out what we filmed in California, and then let's talk a little bit about not only that location, but where Guitar Center is at in general. So first impression, you walk into the main room of this massive Guitar Center store, and it is just overwhelming how big it is. Just going into the guitar section in particular, the size of a lot of entire Guitar Center stores. The thing I really liked with this room is the branding for each brand section. Huge Fender section with all kinds of like Fender logos on the wall. Same thing for Gibson. This front room is pretty much just electrics. There's a lot going on in here. It wasn't crazy busy while we were there, but there was definitely people there, which is good to see. Like any other Guitar Center store, you can just kind of walk around, pick stuff up off the wall, and check out any new or used guitars. I know I checked out a few things that I hadn't played before, and that's always one of my favorite parts about going to Guitar Center stores.
Ultra Lux vintage. There you go. Here's my hot take. You can put this in the video or not because it's not that relevant, but this would just be the American standard. So it's lacquer finish, pure vintage pickups. You do get the S1 switch, 22 fret, compound radius. That's cool. Locking tuners. You get the cool, you get the heel pad. But look, the finish is great on here. I mean, look at that. It's even like aged just a little bit. But it's like, it's very OTM. Looks like OTM to me. Or it's like about the same price as like an American Pro or whatever. But it has the specs you want. They finally reissued the special I like. The special you like? I've been saying for like years they need to do the double cut dual P90. Yeah, but they don't have the right bridge. Oh, I mean, this is the more vintage correct one. I don't mean they didn't reissue the one I had. They didn't reissue the 90s one. They used to just not have this at all unless you went to custom shop. So it's just cool to see that now they have like a relatively attainable one. Do you consider $2,000 attainable?
Now, this front room did not have any of their vintage stuff, but it did have some of their used stuff mixed in with the newer guitars. One thing that I noticed, the pricing was a little all over the place because you'd have a new guitar, for example, like a Gibson Les Paul that retails at $2,800. You'd have that out for $2,800. Then you'd also have one that was on like Guitarathon clearance or whatever for $19.99, which is a crazy discount, cool to see. But then you'd also have a used one sitting right next to that of the same model for like $23.99. Kind of seems like their computer is just saying, oh, this new one's been here this long, it's gonna be clearance down to this price, there you go. But then when they buy a used one, and it's gonna be based on the price of just a retail one. And then it seems like if they got a new shipment of the same model that's on clearance, the new shipment will be at retail and then the old shipment will be at the clearance price. So a little confusing. Cool to see good deals on some of the clearance stuff. As I said, really cool brand selections for like Fender and Gibson. Some of the smaller brands obviously were not represented with an entire section, but as you look around the room, they had their own either little sections or they're just kind of off to the side. So pretty comprehensive selection overall.
It's a newer one too. It's cool. But it's not. They got a new price tag format for some of these. You can see these are the OG ones. I don't know why that's the first thing I noticed.
We would love if you took the time to subscribe, like, comment, share the video, all that good stuff. It all really does help us out. Another thing that was really cool in this room was the kind of memorabilia or like the really collectible celebrity played guitars. They had some cool stuff in cases that you could look at. And yeah, that's just cool to see. Most of that stuff wasn't for sale, of course. It was just there on display. And that's pretty exclusive to this location of Guitar Center. You would not see stuff like that at your typical Guitar Center store, which maybe that's something they should work on. Maybe they should have like a couple pieces of memorabilia at every store to just entice people to come in and check it out. So once you've taken all of the newer guitars in and everything in the front room, you can step down a set of stairs and you get into the acoustic room. Immediately, the acoustic room is way more aesthetic, nice wood flooring, and now feels like you're stepping into a really nice guitar shop instead of Best Buy or Circuit City with a bunch of guitars. Their acoustic selection was incredible. It was so much better than most other Guitar Center stores. Their electric selection, as I said, was obviously great, better than most stores, but man, the acoustics was on a whole nother level. Like everything you could want. A lot of the Gibson stuff and Martin stuff I noticed in particular, they might have 3 or 4 of the same model just right next to each other, which is really great if you want to go in and play a bunch of different examples and find the one that speaks to you the most. So that was really cool. And then if you take it a step further, you end up in their vintage and premium used room. This is when things totally changed. Once you step into this very back room, it literally feels like an entirely different store. Now it feels like the guitar stores that we really enjoy going to when we're traveling around, that are more like curated, where everything on the wall actually feels intentional. It feels like somebody who knew what they were doing in regards to buying guitars, curated the inventory. That's where you want to hang out. That's where you want to check stuff out. That's where you're gonna find unique stuff that's in the kind of condition where it's ready to be played and not just random stuff that got traded in. Pricing wise, it was pretty in line with other Guitar Center stores. One thing I noticed that was really interesting regarding pricing in this room was there was some used stuff, especially like vintage style reissues, that were actually priced higher than the clearance section new stuff from the other room. But weirdly enough, the stuff in this room was like way better set up and almost in better condition than some of the new stuff was. I noticed in the front room, like some of the guitars were not set up well. Some of the fretboards were like really dried out. I know Guitar Center, at least for their regular stores, historically doesn't really set up their used stuff. It just gets put out in the condition it comes in. Hopefully that's changing. I was told by employees maybe a year or 2 ago that they literally aren't supposed to do any sort of setup. So it seemed like everything there was actually what you'd expect. So when we go to a lot of the guitar shows across the country, we run into a couple people that we know that work for Guitar Center as used and vintage buyers, and they are curating stuff for their flagship stores like this one. So I know a lot of the vintage pieces that they're buying in at these shows are going straight to stores like the Hollywood location. I'm assuming they also send stuff to their Manhattan store, but speaking on the store we checked out, the selection was awesome. Lots of really, really cool vintage stuff, and you can tell that the people who got this selection together really do care about what they're doing, and we definitely love to see that. I'm a big vintage Japanese guitar enthusiast, and this was definitely the best representation of vintage Japanese guitars that I've ever seen in a Guitar Center, so that was really awesome to see. Lots of other great vintage stuff, everything from old Rickenbackers to what you'd expect at a Fender and Gibson. Did see some really cool custom color Fenders that I was very excited about. Lots of great basses too, and also lots of great amps there too. That was cool to see. Now in this room, you did need to ask for assistance to play most of the instruments in there, which is definitely understandable within the price range. It wasn't like in the front room where you could just go pick stuff up off the wall. You needed to actually ask somebody, and it seemed like there was plenty of people around that would have been down to help out.
Saying looks great. That's on Google listed as a separate business called Rockwalk. It's trying to be its own thing. Rockwalk.
So once we had our fun there, it was time to go. We had a lot of other stuff we were doing while we were in California. One thing we noticed is you walk outside and right next to the Guitar Center store is the closed Sam Ash that used to be right there. Obviously always sad to see. I loved Sam Ash. First time I played like a Gibson guitar was at a Sam Ash store. So yeah, I have a lot of nostalgia for the brand, and so obviously it was a bummer that they ended up closing down somewhat recently. So with Sam Ash's closure, that means that Guitar Center is really the last big box chain retail store of that type. Now there's obviously lots of kind of big box online places like Sweetwater that compete with Guitar Center. But as far as that format store where you have that many locations, it's really just Guitar Center that's left. And I think that kind of leads to the question of, can that business model survive? Speaking on where we're at right now in 2026, I think the things that make independent guitar stores great are the things that you need to do in order to have a successful music store in today's era. There's so much competition with online, so if you're going to have a retail shop, it needs to be experience-based retail. And experience-based retail requires discretion. It's not a turnkey model. It needs people that know what they're doing, who can put their passion into building out stores that feel like places that you want to go and hang out. And that's not something where you can just hit copy paste and put it to every Guitar Center store. I think what Guitar Center has done at the Hollywood location is taken a group of people who've built out a subset of the store to be like that. And I think that will make that store in particular successful for many years to come. Now, it's not so easy though to do that to all of their stores. There's also probably not the demand to do that to all of their stores. So that's what makes it really difficult, is how does the regular retail, not so curated style of Guitar Center survive when competing with, on one side, online, on the other side, curated independent guitar stores. I think if Guitar Center wants to stick around for many years to come and not go the way of Sam Ash, they need to really dig in on how they can improve their retail experience in all their stores. Now, obviously you can't make a super premium used and vintage section in every store. There's just not the resources or demand for that. But I do think that they need to really look at things from a ground level and look at how they can make every store fit in with that experience-based retail model rather than just being a big box corporate guitar store. People want a place that they can go in that's comfortable, that feels curated, that feels intentional. Now, doing that at the scale of Guitar Center, I think would be extremely difficult, and I definitely don't have all the answers for that, but I think that's kind of the direction that they should really move in. If you have any ideas on how they can do that, definitely leave it down below in the comments. I'm always curious to hear you guys' ideas. Definitely a big project no matter what way they want to take that on, but given their new corporate structure, I think that they are probably interested in moving in that direction, so only time will tell what they decide to do. Now, I think it's worth noting here that, you know, we're a small business. A lot of the independent guitar shops that we check out on the channel are also small businesses. I would much rather shop at any of the independent stores that we love over the corporate Guitar Center. So maybe there is a world where there isn't Guitar Center around and the independent stores can now get more market share, which I think would be lovely. I definitely don't want to see Guitar Center go out of business because I think they do add a lot to the community. But at this point in time, given all the options out there, I would much rather shop local, shop independent, whether that's online or in person, than go to the big box store. And I know a lot of people within the guitar community feel the same way. I hope you guys have enjoyed going on this quick journey with us today and checking out the Hollywood Guitar Center store. Please let us know down below in the comments your thoughts on either this Guitar Center store or just Guitar Center in general. I know we all have our own stories and I'm excited to read your guys' stories. We would love if you took the time to subscribe if you're not subscribed already. Like, share the video, comment, all that good stuff. It really does help us out. And again, thanks for hanging out with us today. If you enjoyed this video, we would love if you took the time to check out another, and you can check out one right here.